Hi everybody, this is Avrohom Czapnik from the Jewish Learning Exchange in Los Angeles. I hope you and yours are well. This week's Torah portion is Parshat B'Shalach, filled with miracles. The miracle of the Jewish people being saved by the chasing Egyptians, with the miraculous splitting of the sea and the Egyptians drowning in it. The miracle of being saved from the wicked nation of Amalek. And the miracle of the manna from heaven. The manna from heaven was a special food that fell daily, with the exception of on Shabbos. On the Shabbat it did not fall. On Friday there was a double portion. And the manna was bread from heaven that tasted like whatever they wanted it to taste like. And every day they received their allowance. And the man taught us a very important idea. As a matter of fact, there was some man saved in a jar that was kept in the Aron, in the Holy Ark, in the Mishkan and later on in the Beis HaMikdash in the temple. The lesson of the man is that God provides. Yes, we live in a world where we have to make an effort, but ultimately the Almighty is the one who provides for us. And that's a very important idea to remember. We have to make our effort, but God provides. That's why we shouldn't steal. That's why we shouldn't overwork, because we have to make our effort, but make sure we live a balanced life. And also, we can keep Shabbos. Even when Shabbos is my busiest day, no, the Almighty provides. You just do what you have to do. And He's in charge. And we can give charity. We don't have to be afraid to give charity. Oh, but I need my money. God will reward whatever charity you give to worthy Jewish causes. You'll be rewarded for that. God is in charge. And if we remember that, we can live a happier life and a healthier life when it comes to earning a livelihood. And if God is in charge, then one of the things we have to do is have balance in our lives. We have to give charity, and we have to pray. There's a very beautiful prayer. I'm going to read just a little part of it that some people say daily, and it talks about provide with my allotment of bread and bring forth for me and all members of my household my food before I need it, and not in pain and in a permissible way, and etc., etc., all so that we can serve you and fulfill your commandments. And this is a very important lesson for us to remember. And that's why the manna was saved in the ark, to remind everybody, years later, God is the provider. Very beautiful story about a man named Mr. Mendlowitz, whose brother was a very famous rabbi, Rav Shai Gefeifel Mendelovich, and his brother passed away, and he was walking in the middle of the funeral, and in the middle of the funeral, he stopped off in a grocery store. And people were like wondering, why in the middle of the funeral, you stopping off in a grocery store? And he explained that he had his own grocery store. And he had a very poor man who would come in every day to buy milk and bread for his family. The man couldn't afford to pay for it. But Mr. Mendelovich wanted him to feel comfortable and honored. So he would write down on a paper what he owed, knowing full and well that he was never going to pay him back. And the other man knew this too, but it gave him a sense of honor. He said, oh, it's on the bill? Yeah, it's on the bill. I took care of it. So what does that have to do with you going into the other grocery? He says, well, during the 7 days of mourning for my brother, my store will be closed. So he's going to come into this grocery store because that's the closest one to his house. And I want to tell the owner that this man doesn't have money, and I will cover it after the Shiva is over. So a beautiful story about, again, this idea of having a sensitivity to understand God provides. I can be gracious to the poor, and even more so, I can take care of them even in the midst of my own sorrow for the loss of my brother. I wanted to make sure I took care of him so I could cover his expenses. You know, there's an old expression, the Dalable says, in God we trust, and the joke people say is, in God we trust, but everybody else has to pay cash. But the truth of the matter is that that if we understand that God is the ultimate provider, yes, we have to make our effort to some degree, but ultimately the blessing comes from God. And the reason why the manna didn't fall on Shabbos is because Shabbos is the source of blessing. And we get the blessing from the week comes from Shabbos. So by keeping Shabbos and by giving charity and by praying and by realizing that God is in charge and I don't have to overwork, I can still be in this world, make a living, and use the money hopefully properly, and always remember that God is the real boss. Have a great Shabbos. All the best.